All right, so you guys might be wondering why we're over here today. Well, I got myself a 3D printer. This is the Bambu Lab A1. I can't stop using this thing. It's pretty awesome. I'm gonna walk you guys through this video and let you know, is it really as simple as you would think to get started with a 3D printer? Can you do it without having a lot of skill set? I have not been a 3D printer guy, but when I saw some YouTube videos that inspired me about making your own custom, desk accessories or just helpful things around the house, I thought to myself, well, I mean, how hard can it be, right? But on top of that, when I looked into this printer, I was amazed that it was on sale for $300. So this is the Bambu Lab A1. If you've never seen it before, it has a 256 millimeter by 256 millimeter bed, which means that's how big the things I can print. I don't even know how big that is. That is 10.08 inches by 10.08 inches. Okay. So I just want to walk you guys through my experience with the Bambu printer because I was inspired by this video and I really think that he just was making really cool things, and I wanted to know, am I going to have the same experience, or do I need some level of CAD or 3D design software experience, which I really have very little of. I played around, I think, with Blender like 10 years ago, and I didn't get anywhere with it. I had no idea what I was doing. And the best way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to walk you through kind of my journey through owning this and the things that I've printed, because I started small with the things that were built into the system, and then I worked my way up to more advanced things, and I'm still learning as I go. So let's walk through it. Okay, so when I first got the Bambu Lab printer, there actually is a mobile app that you can use. So this would be the easiest way to get started because you don't have to learn how to do anything. You just have to be able to load filament into it, which is stupid easy. And you have to be able to select things that are helpful for you. If somebody's made the thing before, then you can just print it and it works. So yeah, if you open up the app, you can just scroll through and there's all kinds of different things that people have already custom made. Like if I look at my printing history here, what was one of the first things I printed? The first thing I printed was the boat that everybody does. But then I printed this stackable drawer. Let me go get that real quick. So the first major thing that I printed besides the boat that everybody prints, is their first test print, was this box. This box is just a drawer. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but I printed it and I felt pretty proud of it. We keep our decks of cards and stuff in here. It does make a little bit of squealing when you pull it out. It's using PLA Tough. Some other stuff that I printed. This is the poop tray, commonly referred to. If you've watched any other 3D printing videos, this little tray sits right there and catches all the little plastic pieces that the 3D printer throws out. So you can literally print parts for your 3D printer, which is pretty cool. And there's all kinds of stuff like this around the house that I've just started printing stuff for. So things like remote holder tray for the TV remotes over in our living room, because we wouldn't keep them anywhere. We just set them on a shelf or a tray and they'd always get lost. Now we actually have a place for them. We 3D printed some stuff in the bathroom. So the toothbrushes and stuff like that, they're being held somewhere. It's just little stuff like that I'm trying to find things that are helpful for my 3D printer. I didn't get it because I wanted to print little cool toys or things like that, because that's kind of a waste to me. I wanted it because I wanted to be able to print things that are actually helpful for me. So let me walk you through a couple of the projects, the ones that took a little more effort, but I still didn't have to do any designing. I just kind of had to pick the right things. The first one is down here. If you can see it, this underneath my desk, I just have this little thing here. What it does is I can just take my iPad and slide that sucker, if I can get that. You can just slide it, and now it's at my desk, but it's just kind of hidden away so I don't have to think about it, which is nice because there's always stuff cluttering up my desk. Another fun one was this Switch 2 tray holder. So if you look at that there, it's a nice little, you just put the cartridges right here, and then you have the Joy-Cons go right here. Oops, I just turned on the switch. They just slide in there, and it's even got the Joy-Con holder thing in the back, which is pretty cool. But on top of that, whoever designed this, if you can see it, even added a little bit of the Switch 2 logo branding in there, which is pretty cool. Another one that took a lot more effort was I 3D printed this Scadius board. So I actually individually printed each one of these pieces, screwed them in, even printed little, if you can see it, little spacers that screw it out from the wall. And so if you pop these off, there's a screw hole in the spacer, and then you 3D print the cap. So literally the whole thing here was 3D printed, and you can just basically print little standard sizes for the things you want to mount here, which you can see there's a couple more things that I still need to print that I keep putting stuff over here. This one I just printed yesterday to put my camera on there, keyboard there, the shelf, this is actually where the camera goes when it's not recording. So that was a fun project. All right, now we're in the kitchen, and this is the project that actually took a little bit of work. Madeline was sick of the silverware drawer, and so there's this thing in 3D printing called Gridfinity, where it's basically a standardized grid that you print, and it's 42 by 42 millimeter. So what you do is you take a drawer that you want to fill out, and the first thing you got to do is you got to take a tape measure to it and just measure across. So you take the measurements of the drawer, right? You write that all down, right? And then you need to do some math. So what you figure out eventually is how many grids. So that's how many grids, but here's the problem is they shake around like that. So this is where I had to do my first thing that was custom. I had to print these little spacers that took me a few tries because my first measurements were inaccurate, and it was hard to find a model that actually went all the way back. But once I had it, put those in there, and then nice and snugly, in fact, so snugly. So we also had ones in the front here. So now, because of that, these squares are not going anywhere. So now you've got a perfect grid. So now what you do to fill this out is you print parts. So what I did is I took a picture of the silverware just laying flat over it, and then slowly over time planned out where everything was. So you print these pieces with 5 grids, all these straws that Madeline has. You just stick them in there. Now it's set, okay? Then you take the next thing, and this is only 4 squares. So that's a set of forks. Oh, would you look at that? We have more forks, okay? So we printed another one, okay? And then we printed a spoon one. And these are models that I found, but you know, I've pieced together because I had specific needs. So then, look, we've got the knives, which have 5 grids. That's heavy. Okay, sits right in there. What about measuring cups? Great, you have a 3 by 3 grid. We'll just stick those right there, okay? Then you've got another set of measuring cups because you got to have plastic and metal apparently. Okay, so that's where these go. Little baby measuring ones, okay? Well, maybe that's not where I like those to be. So I can push these back a little bit. Gridfinity, amazing. So then I can just stick it right there if I want to. And then I've got this one. Oh, what happens if the grids are farther than your actual printer? Well, that's fine, because you can print them in 2 pieces. So 4 and 3, just stick it in there. Right now, this is just like chopsticks, okay? And then some more measuring cup stuff here. In fact, I think this was actually where this was at. So that. And look, you've got so much space left. And you know, there's a few miscellaneous things we could either stick in a different drawer, or we could make our own little spot for it. So yeah, it's a fun project. Required a bit more work than the other things that I had printed because I had to plan this out and actually draw up a plan and measure things and then customize it even a little bit in Bambu Studio. Speaking of Bambu Studio, if we load up the handy dandy computer here, this software is a little bit similar to the software that is on the mobile phone, but there's just way more you can do here. So if you have a print that you're working with, right, and you just want to tweak it a little bit, you actually can go in here and look at the properties of it. So let's open up something here. So this is a shelf that I was considering printing. And so you don't have a lot of these abilities on the mobile app because it's a mobile app, right? So, but you can actually take this and you can scale it. up and down if you so desire. You can stretch it out. So yeah, and you can have multiple build plates in here too, so that you can actually change the quantity of the things you want. So if you want only 3 of these things, you can actually cut them out and you only have 3 of them. You can choose different filaments here. So if I pick like the PLA matte, that changes them all to black. But then when you hit slice, it will tell you what the cost is and how much filament you're using. So 76 grams, right? So this to print would cost me about $1.91, which isn't cheap. 3D printing is not a cheap hobby, I would say, but it can save you money, because if you're gonna buy those things anyway from Amazon, Silverware tray or something like that for 20, 30 bucks, and you printed it yourself for only 10, you saved yourself 10. So it could save you money over time. I'm not here to promise you that, but there are things that you can just print that you can't necessarily buy somewhere too. So, well, okay, this looks like great software, but does it actually let me make custom things? Well, it's not really designed for that. You can add things like a cube or a cylinder or things like that, but like actual 3D model manipulation is tough to do. Now, let me tell you about one project that I did that didn't require me to understand 3D design software, but still gave me a pretty good result. So my friends came to me. They're in a fantasy football league. I'm not, but they wanted me to make them the toilet bowl trophy for the loser of the losers. And then they wanted me to make the winner trophy. And so in my head, I'm like, okay, how do I do that? Because I don't know how to design a football player or a trophy or anything like that. But I have a 3D printer, and so I decided to see if I could make it work. So first thing I did actually was I went to Grok, and I don't know why I went to Grok, maybe just because I was going to put a football player in a toilet bowl. That was my idea for a design. So what I did was I asked it, I don't even remember where the project is, but here, let's just do it like this. So what I basically said is, give me a 3D model of a trophy that is a football player in a toilet bowl. Okay, so you hit enter. Let's see what images it generates for me. So this isn't exactly, but these are very similar to what I got. So I picked an image that looked like something like this. Okay, so this one here is pretty close to the one that I picked. And so what I did was, you can actually save this image and then football player. Okay, and then there's this new website that I found. I think it's called Meshy.ai. So you go to Meshy.ai, and what you can do is you can actually upload the picture that Grok generated for you, and it will create a 3D model. Now I paid like, I don't even know if I paid. I think there was a free promo for like a free month. And so what I did was I actually uploaded the picture, and I was able to get a 3D model. Now, look, it's a little rough. Like, there's a bunch of weird stuff in the back here, and if I knew what I was doing, I would probably change a few things about this, okay? But, like, that's pretty good. So what you can do is you can literally, and this was the winning trophy too, so we had a dab here. So what you do then is you export this. You can actually export the model, download it as a STL file, so that works just fine. And then in Bambu Studio, you can open up a new project, and then you hit this little box up here to add, then you find that download that you had, and it will import it in here. Okay, that's great that I made a trophy here. We've got a few different pieces that I added on. Okay, so we've got it in Bambu Studio, but actually what I did is I generated a block down here at the bottom, and then I wanted some text here. So all you have to do is hit the add text button, and it will add a text shape. We won't add any more. But then once you have it there, you can just tweak it. So in Bambu Studio now, I've basically generated a custom trophy. This wasn't a lot of work, but because these are touching each other, it will mesh into one piece. I printed it in PLA matte white, and then I didn't do a great job of sandpapering it, but I was able to spray it down with car paint to give it a different finish instead of that like liney 3D printer stuff. And then I actually spray painted it with silver to give it a shine because it was a trophy, right? So the finished project is this, and for what I did with my friend, like, they thought it was super cool. It was custom, it was fun. The name of the person who actually won the league in the fantasy league app was on the trophy, so it was custom to them, and it cost like $1 or $2 to print when all was said and done, maybe $3 with my errors and stuff like that as I was learning to print. You have to make sure that stuff like this, you turn on the supports. So if I slice it, it will automatically generate some supports here so that it will freestand. But then once you print it, you just break these pieces off and it's good to go. So that is how you print something and design something that is custom to you, but you don't need to understand 3D printing software. But the final boss for me was actually learning how to use 3D print software. So I've been trying to learn how to use Fusion 360. Picked it because I don't know why. I just picked a software that I could find for free, and there was a lot of tutorials on it. The personal version is free to use for non-commercial stuff. So I'm not planning on getting super into it per se to sell to a bunch of people, but I did want to have a couple fun projects. And so I had a project that my friend who owns a gym came to me about. It was like, hey, how hard would it be to 3D print a sign for my gym to hang outside and run an LED strip through? And I thought, I don't know, but let's try it and see what happens. I've had a few custom projects that I've been trying to learn. So I found a tutorial series online where I actually made like a Lego block and this test phone stand, which was a bit of work to get done. There's another project that a friend is asking me, which I might talk about in a future video, where I actually had to custom measure out things for a phone indicator light replacement thing. But the one that I've been working on right now is this sign for my friend. And so this was inspired by this video, which I'll put up on the screen here. And what I wanted to do is actually scale it to be the same size as a full-blown sign. So let's hide all the bodies. Okay, so basically the way something like this, after a long time and watching this tutorial, this project took me quite a bit of time to execute. But essentially what I had to do was go in here and you basically start with a sketch. So this is all gridded out, which is really nice. It's easy to export into your favorite software, your 3D printer. So the Bambu Studio app actually allows it to print. You take a sketch, right? And then you pick the plane and you can insert text. So text can be put in here and then you pick a zone for it to be at. And after a little bit of testing and prodding, the text that you want and the font that you want, and then it will create an editable text file, similar to like Photoshop or something like that if you've ever used it. But the thing then you have to do is convert it into a 3D sketch. And so there was a lot of different pieces to this where you basically take the letters that you have and then you have to create an extra space on the outside of the letter so that it has, because we're turning this into two pieces. So there's going to be a front white cap that is the main letter, and then there's going to be a back plate that is black that will actually give it some contrast. And so you had to go through, and I won't walk you through every single piece of this, but it was pretty tedious creating the thick part here, then creating another thin layer in the middle here that'd be the offset. Then you add these squares here because what we're going to do is run LED lights through this, and then it will go through here and go through here and go through that so that it's one continuous piece. And then this square is a back door that will actually allow the LEDs to be run through the wall. The power strip will run through the wall, and I'm hoping that this will turn into a pretty sweet sign. So this is what the sketch looks like after quite a bit of going back and forth. There's an offset sketch, which if we look at the 3D here, there's a second one. So the top one is what the white caps are going to be, and then the bottom one is the black caps, okay? And eventually what you can do, you take these sketches and you turn them actually into 3D models. Okay, and so this is what, if I turn all of the pieces on, this is what the finished 3D render actually looked like, okay? So if you look at the back of the letters here, this is the underside, so they're hollowed out so that it will actually allow the LED cables to run through it. And then these black pieces, if we go over here, they are going to allow, I added a couple screw holes too so that they can screw into the wall, and then a back door. And then if you look at the side here, if it works, there is a little side door here so that when the pieces all flush together. Now, I created all these pieces, and then if we go into Bambu Studio, you have to import these, but you can make it into one file. So eventually I had one file with all of these pieces split out into different sections so that it would all print. And then what you do is you hit slice, and it will tell me, if I click this button here, what every single plate is going to cost me to print. So then I could tell my friend how much filament, and I just charge them at cost because I'm not here running this like a business and I don't want to get sued by Fusion 360. Now, did this actually turn out? Well, I'm happy to report that we actually were able to print the full sign. It took probably 2 weeks because I had to wait for some black filament to arrive. The amazing thing about this 3D printer and just the 3D printing process is these actually printed almost exactly, not almost, they exactly how I had them designed in the 3D CAD software. So this is one of the example pieces compared to my hand. This is going to be a pretty big sign. And we were able to print custom D on the front, right? And then this is the inside plate with a couple screw holes here so that it can screw it into the wall. And there's, you can't probably see it in the video, but there's a little bit of offset wall here so that when you put the letter in here, it doesn't go all the way down. And these are like so well flushed, like this is pretty tightly fit in here. So it's not like it's not impossible to take off, but there's a little bit of, it won't come out of the thing if it's a windy day or something like that. And, you know, if this wasn't exactly what we wanted, the front plates are a lot thinner and easier to print. So hopefully by the time I've published this YouTube video, I've actually got it posted where I can show you what it looks like on the wall. This was the first project for me where I was able to do something for somebody else, do it in a custom design software. It took me hours and hours to actually make this model, but it was super rewarding because I was able to turn it into a physical product. And that's the thing I really like about 3D printing is it's something that I get to make. It's not the same as like building something or carpentry or things like that, but as a tech guy, sometimes you lose touch with the ability to actually do things with your hands because you're constantly on a computer all the time. And so it's cool when you actually get to have an idea for something that you want to make and you get to turn it into reality. So do you need to know how to use custom design software to get started with a 3D printer? Absolutely not. And there's a lot you can do before you even need that. But if you're wanting to get better or you have an idea for something in your head, it's easier than you might think to get started, and there's so much good information on the internet. If you even try a little bit to apply yourself, you get the filament, you get the printer. I think it's worth it. And the nice thing for me, at least with 3D printing, is it hasn't interrupted my life per se. It takes a while to work on these design files and things like that, but once you have the design file and you hit print, it takes a little while to print files. So then you can go back to other stuff in your life. If it takes 6 or 7 hours, you're not watching the printer do its thing. You're just kind of letting it run in the background and you can go on with your life and enjoy your family, going to the gym, stuff like that. Okay, so that is my opinion on the Bambu Lab A1 printer. I really like it. I think it's pretty sweet. And if it makes you want to buy a 3D printer, then do it. There's so many things that I didn't even get to cover. And I don't know if I'm going to do a lot of 3D printing videos in the future, but I have this now and it's a tool that I can use to make cool things. So if you guys are interested in getting your own 3D printer, then do it. Or comment some questions about if you want me to clarify something or if you're on the fence about buying one. Happy to answer those. Thanks so much for watching this YouTube video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.